How can we speak about the truth? A talk with Unmani.
So what is the truth that we're longing to speak about? Well, it is the truth of who we are, right? And when we have a glimpse or a recognition or a moment where we feel that sense of expansion, there can be a natural longing to share that. So when we recognize I'm not limited to this me in here or this story, there can be a sense of such expansiveness and spaciousness that it can feel like it can't be contained in here, that it longs to overflow into expression and sharing, often particularly to those close to us or those that we see around us suffering, still believing in their thinking, taking themselves very seriously. So we long to share and express what we've recognized. But most of the time, when we try to do that, it can come out as a bunch of concepts, a nice spiritual story that are perhaps full of beautiful spiritual concepts and words, but very rarely do they actually convey what you've recognized or what has deeply touched you. I know for myself, once I recognized and consciously acknowledged the truth of who I am, there was this real longing to share it. And at the time, this was quite a few years ago, at the time I was traveling in Australia. And I remember I arrived at like a campsite where I was going to be staying. And I met some other people just in there, like in the kitchen. Somehow I found myself desperately wanting to share with them. And so I started to speak about this. And it turned into this kind of philosophical debate. And I noticed in my body that I just felt sick at how somehow what I was sharing was not being, what I recognized was not being conveyed in the words, in what I was expressing. And I just didn't know how to do that. And I was trying, but all I could do was kind of regurgitate old concepts or concepts that I had heard or read. And despite the fact that I genuinely did recognize the truth of who I am, still I couldn't express it. And it was so frustrating. And so after that, I decided, right, that's it. I'm not going to even try to do that because it felt actually sickening. Like I wanted to throw up. It was so awful, the feeling, the fact that it wasn't congruent. What I recognized and what was coming out of my mouth, it just was not in alignment. So I decided just to shut up. I prefer to be alone with this than to try to share this. And perhaps you can recognize that you might have tried to share this message and all that comes out are dead concepts. And that's what people hear then. And then, of course, it becomes a mental debate. And in fact, the truth of who we are is beyond thought, right? When you recognize your true nature, or when you have a moment where you acknowledge that I'm not limited to this body, this mind, this apparent person, then it's got nothing to do with concepts, even the most beautiful spiritual concepts. So then how to convey this truth that is even, of course, beyond the word truth. This word truth is just like, it doesn't say it. So I feel that first of all, we have to acknowledge that every word is wrong and every word will always be wrong. That you're never going to find the perfect words to really say this in some ideal way, according to your mind. And when you acknowledge that every word is going to be wrong, there's a great freedom in that. And you stop trying to get the right words. And then there's no more effort, because a lot of when we are trying to, when we're trying, right? We're trying to say this, then that effort of trying is what really is transmitted. And our true nature doesn't require any effort. It is who we are effortlessly. You don't need to do anything to become this. This is who you are already. So as long as we're trying to express this or trying to share this, this is not the way. This is always going to fail. All you transmit is making effort. Also, who we are, who we truly are, and this message is beyond separation, right? So as long as you are trying from a me trying to tell you, you are actually reinforcing the concept and the belief in separation. You are implying that I know something that you don't know and I need to tell you. In other words, you're missing something and that I've got. So it's not like that. It doesn't work. Then you just are telling a story about non-duality or satsang or spirituality. You're reinforcing a belief in a separate me for yourself and for the other. You're making what you have recognized into some kind of belief system or religion in a way. You're feeding a spiritual identity for yourself and a kind of poor me seeker identity for the other. So this is not the way. So when you stop trying, you just, okay, admit that I can't share this. It's not up to me to share this. Then you don't share this, right? Then you're alone with this. There's perhaps a heartbreak in that, because especially when your loved ones are suffering, then there is a natural longing to share. But until you can truly trust that life will use you to share if it uses you. You know, it's not up to a separate me to choose to share. Perhaps you might have experienced a moment where you're with somebody and without any effort, something just pops out of your mouth that is like, oh, wow, that's a gem, right? Where did that come from? Right? I didn't, you know, if I would have had to think about that, that would have been really difficult. But somehow life in that moment just used you to express something that was really needed for that other person to hear, and also for yourself in that moment. So it's those moments where life just uses this human to express itself. It uses this mouth to speak itself. And if you are in surrender in that moment, in other words, if you are not trying to grasp or do something or try, there's no effort. If in that moment you are able to just trust and allow, even allow is too much, but you're just stepping back, like leaning back, letting life use you, then you never know what can come out of your mouth. And this is how it happened for me, but it took a long time of just being alone with this and not sharing, because I didn't want to feel so sickened by myself, by this conceptual way of sharing. And then in its own time, life used me. And of course now it's using me a lot. But it's not like that for everyone. You might find that life uses you to express itself in another form. Maybe speaking is not the form for you. Maybe it's through art, let's say, painting, dancing, singing. Maybe it's in your work in some way. Maybe it's in one particular way of connecting with people when you're on one-to-one with someone. Maybe it's through touch. If you're doing some kind of body work, sometimes it can feel like life is using you through your hands, through your body. So life uses us to express itself, to sing its own song, right? So that longing to share, it's a beautiful longing, but it's, you could say it's a longing to a longing for life to express itself in form, for the formless to dance itself in this play of form. And that can be in any way that we don't know, you know. I feel like it first has to be that we say, I don't know how to express this. And when the thinking says, I don't know, it bows down. It says, you know, I'm not the one to know how to express this. It's not up to me. Then there's a stepping aside of this me, this separate me, this story of me. And then living in wonder at each moment when life might use you to express itself. And if it doesn't, in the way you might hope for, then this is perfect. This is just the way it must be. If it is expressing itself in silence, in aloneness, then this is exactly as it must be. Then you're alone with feeling your longing to share and express. And this is the perfect expression of life itself, just as it is. Not every expression needs to be an apparent outward expression. It can also be this just feeling whatever is here. This is the perfect expression of life, of the truth of who you are. And of course, it can change. You never know how life might use you. So we can't force it and push. We can't set ourselves up as someone who knows. We can feel immediately, physically, where this is incongruent and not in alignment with the truth of who we are. So stay really sensitive to what feels in alignment. And the minute it feels a bit sickening in a way, a bit yucky, stop. Stop and just feel. Stay with yourself. There's no need to push, no effort needed. Stay with your breath. And when life moves you, then you may express in some way. It's not up to you. It's a forever bowing down to life. Use me.